film one of my favorite videos of the year, and that is to talk about my top 15 reads of the year. So these are the 15 books that are the best of 2019, my absolute favorites, the most amazing gems that I read this year. And I honestly feel like I had such a mediocre reading year that I really didn't feel a lot about the books that I read. Like, I didn't even have a lot of books that I didn't like. Like, it was just felt bleh about everything. So I had a bit of trouble making this list because 15 was actually kind of hard, but I did it because I like the idea of doing 15 books every year, because it used to be harder for the other extreme, that there'd be like 25 books that I loved and I couldn't pick it. But I am excited to show off this list. So these are the top tier of books that I read this year, and I am ranking them from 15 to 1 because I really like doing that. I like to put them in order of my absolute favorites, so I am just excited to get into this video. So coming in at number 15, we have Capturing the Devil by Kerry Maniscalco. I had to put the conclusion of one of my favorite series on this list, and this book was so good. I do definitely see where Escaping from Houdini wasn't as good now that I've read this book, and I just enjoyed this so much more. But this book really wasn't as plot orientated as the rest of this series. This one really focused on the relationship of Audrey, Rose and Thomas, and I was so here for that. I love their relationship. They are adorable. They are such a good couple, and the long haul of from the first book to the fourth book is just beautiful, and I really did enjoy it. And I definitely didn't like this murder case though, and I did guess it. Like, every single book I've guessed who the murderer is, so I must have like a sixth sense, but I just really love these characters, and they did conclude their relationship quite well. Okay, number 14 on my list is Dora the Pirate King by Trisha Levenseller. I really enjoyed this, and so many people were recommending it that it was a really good book, so I decided to listen to it on audio, even though I did own them already, but they were really easy audiobooks to get through. But I had so much fun with this. Alosa was a really fun character. She's so snarky, and I really liked Ridden as well, and like their relationship, and it's all about pirates and mayhem, and she's the daughter of the Pirate King, and they're trying to find this map, and she gets purposely captured. Like, it had all the bantery fun plotness that I really wanted, and the second book was just as great. I loved this duology as a whole, but I'm just so glad I finally did pick it up, and it was one of my favorites. Coming in at number 13 is The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. I have had this book for so long and I kept putting it off, but Sasha made me read it this year because she picked it in my TBR video for me to read, and I did get to this one. I didn't get to many of the books in that TBR because I suck at everything, but I read this and I really enjoyed it, and I really do need to get to The Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy because I need to continue on to then read the third book that's coming out. But I really did love this, and Monty and Percy are such great characters, and I didn't expect this book to have so many adventures and just be so funny. And I really loved Monty and Felicity's relationship that developed in this book because they're brother and sister, but it was just fun. Monty's still something he wasn't meant to, and they just get chased throughout this book by different people, and it was just great. And like, the conclusion of this plot was just so like overwhelmingly crazy that I was just so for it. Number 12 on my list is Heartstopper by Alice Osman. Like, I just saying Heartstopper because volume 1 and volume 2 were both beautiful, so they're like a collective. Just the Heartstopper novels are a collective, and I'm so keen for the third one that's coming out in the first 3 months of the year because I need to know what's going to happen to my babies. I really enjoyed it. I love Charlie and Nick. Just their beautiful relationship that's developing is so cute because they're only like 14 and 16, and they're like precious little beans, and they're falling in love, and it's just such a great story because they're friends and then they fall in love, and just like, I love it too. And everyone in Charlie's life is so supportive of him, even though he does get bullied by school friends, but his family just loves him, and it's so adorable. Like, if you want to get overloaded by adorableness, pick this up. Coming in at number 11 is Well Met by Jen DeLuca. This is definitely up there with my favorite romance novels that I listened to on audiobook. It was just so good. I wasn't even expecting it to be that good because it's in a Renaissance fair, and I really didn't know where it was going to go, and the plot was kind of a little bit confusing to me. It seemed like the main love interest was going to be a huge arsehole, but there'd not be one, and I'm like, that's kind of a bit toxic, but they do it so well that it isn't. Like, I just love this so much. Emily and Simon's relationship is so great, and I also love Emily's relationship with her sister and her sister's daughter, and she has a lot of baggage in this book that she has to get over, so finding out more about her life just got me so invested in this story, and I just had so much fun with it. And honestly, all the fair stuff was so great, and it just felt so old and timely, and I really want to go to one now. It's a life mission now for me to eventually go to a Renaissance fair once in my lifetime, and I need to do it because this book's just made me love the idea. Number 10 on my list is The Kingdom by Jess Rothenberg. I loved this so much. I requested it from Pam Macmillan because it sounded like it was gonna be amazing, and it was even better than I thought. I just really resonated with this story. The main character is half human, half android, and she is one of these magical princesses in this theme park that people visit because the outside world is shit, so they visit this theme park to be happy. But Anne's our main character, and she starts to become aware of things around her and realize that everything isn't as happy as it could be, and she doesn't want to be in the park anymore, but she doesn't know how to escape. And she meets Owen, who is a worker at the park, and this book is really interesting because it's told in an interview format as it recounts the events of the book, but it's also in Anna's point of view going through these things as well. It was just like really interesting because I loved the format of how it was told, but I also liked the plot, and I really do like the idea of robots becoming aware and then becoming more human. Like, that has just always been very intriguing to me, so this book did it really well and I just really enjoyed it. Coming in at number 9 is Sadie by Courtney Summers, and this is not a happy read, but it was written so well. This is a book that you absolutely need to listen to on audio if you have not. If it was someone that was going to be concerned about trigger warnings, I would definitely Google this book beforehand so that you know what you're walking into as you're reading it. But this book definitely became a favorite for me because of the audiobook and the cast, because there was over 40 voices in this audiobook, and the main character Sadie, she has a lisp, and they definitely do that very well in the audiobook. But the other thing about this book is it's told in Sadie's point of view because she's the main character, but then we also have the other main character, who is Wes McCrae, who writes podcasts. So we have Sadie's point of view in the time when she's trying to find her sister who was murdered, and she knows who the murderer is, but she's trying to find them. But then we have Wes McCrae's point of view when he's writing the podcast, and he's following in the footsteps of where Sadie went because he's trying to find her, and it's been months since she's disappeared. So we have the idea that she's missing, her sister's dead, and it's very sad, but then we see what she's going through, and it's not a happy book. It is nowhere near happy, and the ending is so difficult to get through, but it is such a beautifully written book, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about it because it was just so interesting. Number 8 on my list is Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This is honestly such a good book. I love the idea of this book too because it's a sliding door premise where the main character Hannah is home after breaking up with a boyfriend, and she's going out with one of her friends, and then suddenly her life splits in the decision of, does she go home with an old flame Ethan, or does she go back home with her friend Gabby? So we see both decisions play out, and they happen very differently, and very different things happen to her in the time, and it's crazy. One chapter something does happen, but in another chapter something doesn't happen. And also for things where it's like, because a certain thing happened, it doesn't happen to her in this lifetime, but you're waiting for it to happen to her in the other lifetime when you know something hasn't happened. Like, it's very hard to explain, but it's almost like you have a look through into her life, even though it's multiple dimensions of what's going on. And like, there's also things about like her friend that you know, but then you kind of like, oh my god, they don't know yet in this lifetime. It was a great story, and it definitely captivated me. So crazy too to be like having two different relationships happening, because like when she goes home with Ethan, that's a different story, but then in the other one she meets Henry, and just, oh, it's so good. There's definitely one life that I like more, but there's no like winning in this situation because like both lives happen and both lives go on. But I just loved this book so much. Like, it's well worth reading. Number 7 on my list is Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. I am so glad I decided to listen to this book. I was driving home from Newcastle, so I had 5 hours to kill, so I started listening to it, and I had a lot of time to listen to it, and everything about this book is just something I love. Like, I love the idea of the dual perspectives in the timeline, because this is a murder mystery, and there's a murder that happens 80 years ago, and we get chapters from that murder. We're all trying to figure out what happened, including Stevie, the main character, but then we've got timeline of now where Stevie goes back to the school where the original murder happened. Murders start happening in the present, and it's just all over the place, but I love it so much. I love Stevie. I love the friendships that she develops with the people around her. It's all just so beautiful, and it's so captivating, and it's a whole trilogy. And the third book is coming up very, very soon, so I am very keen to see where it's going to go, because the second book was just as great, and it just keeps me captivated the whole time. Okay, number 6 on my list is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. It was honestly so hard for me to decide where to put these two books, because Maybe in Another Life was my favorite for so long, but I've got to mention Evelyn Hugo first, because this is the first one I've read of hers, and now I've read 4 of her books, and I've only got 2 more to go. But I just love Evelyn Hugo so much, and this story is so investing and so interesting, and this is the book that started me on adult romances because it was so good. So Evelyn Hugo is a famous movie star, and she's famously known for having 7 husbands. I seem to really love dual perspective timeline narrative, because that is all these books seem to be. So one timeline, the main character is Monique, who is a journalist, and Evelyn Hugo has never done interviews, but she suddenly decides that she wants Monique to do the interview for her, and no one understands why, but she goes there and Evelyn Hugo is like, I'm going to tell you the whole story of my life and you are going to listen and write it down, and Monique doesn't really know what to do here, but she decides to start listening. So we get Evelyn talking about her life to Monique, but then we see Evelyn back in the timeline where she's going through her whole life, and we get 60 years worth of story here, and we see her go through all of her husbands and talk about how this worked and what she's done in her lifetime. And there were so many things that were so shocking and surprising, and just it was done so well. And Evelyn Hugo is just this big harsh bitch, and I don't even know how to describe her. She is like the worst person ever, yet I love her with a passion because she's such a great character. Like, she does so many things that are so wrong to make her career better, and I am just like here for it because she's such a great character. And I have never read a book anything like this, and I don't think I'm ever going to get to read one like it again, but it was beautiful, and if you haven't read it yet, it is another one you definitely need to read. Okay, number 5 on my list is Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. Oh my god, this is like one of the last books I read of 2019, but it slipped in there because this was such a good book. I'm so glad I decided to read it before the end of the year though, because it would have been a big contender for 2020 if I actually left it like I was going to, but the Winter Magical Readathon made me read it, which I'm so happy about. I also feel like I've been gushing about this book so much recently because it was so good, but it's basically about Lou and Reed, and Lou's a witch and Reed's a witch hunter, and they get forced into an arranged marriage, and like, what more do you need? It was hate to love at its finest by having an arranged marriage, and the plot was great. There was a lot of great banter, and just witches, you know, witches are great. Witches are fun. I definitely think I'm going to keep recommending this book and just make people read it because it was just amazing and I just enjoyed it profusely. Number 4 on my list is Scythe by Neil Schusterman. This book was so great, and another book that I've had for a long time that I never picked up, but I'm also glad because I would have died if I couldn't get the sequel straight away because it's so good. It's written so well, and it's such an interesting concept. It's a scary concept, but an amazing concept at the same time. But in this book, humans have basically conquered everything in life, and that's including death. So people don't die anymore. They can come back from literally any type of accident, and they can just live for as long as they want to because they can rewind the clock. So eventually the world started to get overpopulated, so they needed to introduce the concept of Scythes. What Scythes do is they go around and glean people, and gleaning means you can't come back. So they get to pick at random, or they can just be spiteful or do whatever they want to do. They need to kill a certain amount of people to try and get the population down, and Citra and Rowan are the main characters, and they both get chosen to be apprentices to a Scythe, and they get to learn the trade, and they don't really want to do it, but there's only certain people that can do it, so they get picked because they seem to have the capacity to be a Scythe, and it just goes on from there, and we get to learn a lot about the society and a lot about the Scythedom, and it's seriously an amazing plot and story, and it just keeps you so invested because you need to keep reading. Like, there's no way you can't not keep reading because it's so good, and I have not gotten the toll yet. I don't know, so many people have been asking me when I'm gonna read it, but it's hella expensive right now, and I want to like save my money and buy cheaper books, so I will buy it the minute it is cheaper, but at the moment it is just hella expensive. Okay, so we have gotten to the top 3, and this was the hardest thing about this video because all of these books could have been number 1, number 2, or number 3, and I had to pick an order to put them in, but honestly in a couple of days the order is probably going to change in my mind, and before I even made this video I thought I had a set order, but I changed it up because I just couldn't pick. And this is weird for me because every year there's always been that one book that's number 1, and then the rest are really hard to pick, but I have a top 3 and that has never happened to me. So there's 3 books that I've been really excited about, and if you've been watching for a while you're gonna know what these 3 books are, but the order is a shock to me, but probably a shock to people as well. So number 3 is 4 Dead Queens by Ashrid Schulte. This is the one that was meant to be number 1, yet 2 books pushed it out of the way. That's how amazing the top 2 books are, but I did really love this book. I read it really quickly and I just got so invested in this story. But Carolee's our main character, and she is a thief, and she accidentally steals something that she shouldn't have that leads to all 4 queens in this world getting murdered. So she has to try and fix the shit that she started, and Varyn, who was a messenger that she stole from, gets to her and he's like, you need to help me fix this. So they both have to go on this big chase to try and save the queens and figure out what's happening. So it's really interesting too because you get all the perspectives of the queens as well. So I always thought before reading this book we would have no information about them and they would just be figureheads, but we actually get to deeply understand them all, and they've all got secrets, they've all got their lives going on and stuff going on, and it's really not a great place to be a queen because they basically get forced into it whenever their mothers die and the new queen has to go there instantly and they never can leave the palace. But it's a really interesting story, and all the quadrants where all the queens come from are all different, so it's kind of like a fraction system here. It was a really great story, and a lot of plot twists were coming and being chucked at me, and I didn't really know how to feel, and like none of them I really guessed at. Like definitely in my book review I talk a lot more into detail about what this book's actually about, because it's been a while since I've read it, so I definitely remember things, but I also feel like I've forgotten a lot. But I did really enjoy this book, and it definitely deserves the spot it got. Okay, number 2 is Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. Of course this was going to be up there in the list because this book was amazing. Alex and Henry are like my new favorite couple, and it's just so adorable. And this plot point of having the son of the president fall in love with the Prince of Wales is something I never knew I needed. I never knew that this was a thing that needed to happen. And of course the publishers needed to take this story because it is amazing. I just love it so much, and just seeing how their relationship developed, and it's so hard because they don't live near each other and they got to keep traveling on planes to see each other. It's so good, and the audiobook is so good too because Henry's voice actor has the full British accent, and it just makes me feel like I was right in the story, and it's just done so well, and we get to learn so much about these characters, and they're such individuals and just so amazing, and all the little details we get about them, and also the whole cast of side characters is amazing as well. It's just great for discovery as well. Like it's a good book I think for probably like teenagers to read as well. It does have strong content, and I do understand that. It's a really good book to help discover who you are, and I loved it so much. Like I could gush about this all day. And drum roll! The top book of 2019 was A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Cremira. Oh my god. Of course the Beauty and the Beast retelling was going to take the top spot because it was amazing. It was amazing. I have not stopped thinking about this book since I read it, and I enjoyed it so much, but Four Dead Queens was the strong contender. It actually took me a couple of months to realize how much I really did love this book, but I love Harper and I love Ren. I love the characters. I love the idea of this book because Harper's in our world and she has cerebral palsy, which is a disability that's never put into books really, so I really love the author for putting that in the main character and making us understand it a lot more. But basically she's in our world and she gets kidnapped by Grey, who is a soldier on behalf of Ren, and she's taken into the world of Emberfall where Ren has 3 months to make her fall in love with him so his curse gets broken. And I just love it so much because we get to understand so much of the world, and there's so much bad shit going on, and she wants to help, and like I love the relationship between her and Grey and her and Ren and Grey. All the connections between them is done so well. It really expands on the Beauty and the Beast story because Harper just wants to help, and she just becomes like so empowered in this story, and she just becomes like basically a queen, and it's so great. And I'm so keen for the second book because I just need to know where it's gonna go, and I'm so excited. Like it was such a great book. I just highly recommend it if you love Beauty and the Beast retellings, and even if you don't, pick it up anyway because it does have the base story of Beauty and the Beast, but it's just so much more. This is so hard, but here is the stack of my favorite books of this year. Oh my god, this is so many books. Like this is how many books I just absolutely loved, and it's always great to see that. But anyway guys, thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. I always love talking about the favorite books of the year. It's just a really fun video to do because you just get to gush about things that you love. But anyway guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!